All right, I guess we ate the normal kind of let people fill in time with me getting stuff turned on. So we'll just get started. So hopefully you guys are all in the right place. Hopefully I'm in the right place. This talk is on getting more out of your logs, specifically with Logstash and GRAYLOG, GRAYLOG2. Hi, I'm Howard. I'm Howard Tyson. I work at a company called ZivTech. We do open source consulting, mostly Drupal, specializing in Drupal, but then we also do consulting on automation and DevOps and LAMP stack stuff and automated testing and Node.js and a bunch of other fun stuff. I've got cards if anybody thinks they could use my help with anything. They pay for my ticket, so I feel like I should do a little commercial there. Anyway. Okay, from here on out, everything's free. So, so I've been working in Drupal for, I don't know, 5 or 6, 7 years now. It's been a while. And I keep moving farther and farther down the stack with the Drupal stuff. I started out as a themer, and now I'm just playing Alice in Wonderland trying to figure out exactly how deep this rabbit hole goes. And where that has me right now is doing all kinds of systems, automation-y kinds of stuff, which is what I'm going to be talking to you guys about today. So let's talk about logs. It's an exciting topic, I think. I don't know about you guys. I kind of feel like telling people that they should do more stuff with their logs. It's kind of like a commercial for something that ostensibly isn't all that appealing, right? Like, who wants to be staring at logs? Who thinks it's even a problem until it's a problem? But there's a long storied history of people being able to sell, medicine, a little spoonful of sugar, and making sure that we get to the point where we all understand how good logs really are.
Hey, kid, you want a toy?
Uh-huh.
How about a bike?
No.
A video game?
No!
Well, okay. You pick a toy.
I want log! Boy, oh boy!
Yes, log. All kids love log.
What rolls downstairs, older and tears, rolls over your neighbor's dog. What's great for a snack and fits on your back? It's log, log, log. It's log, log. It's big, it's heavy, it's wood. It's log, log. It's better than that.
It's good.
Everyone wants a log. You're gonna love it, log. Come on and get your log. Everyone needs a log.
Log from Blammo.
Now you're excited about logging. Oh, God, I did something terrible. Mixing yourself is probably the only thing worse you can do than a live demo. I'm going to do both. So, first, why should you care about this stuff? I feel like every aggregated logging talk starts with why you should care, which is why I wanted to start with a little video trying to get you to care. So I think this story is going to be all too familiar for the people that were interested enough in this talk to be sitting here. It's evening. You have to imagine the crickets. I don't have audio for this part. You're relaxing in your bed, and all of a sudden your phone starts ringing off the hook. Your significant other comes over. You get your thing. It's probably work. Would you go fix it? I don't. So you go to your computer. Something's broken. You open up a terminal, you start catting logs, you start grepping logs, you start writing regular expressions on the fly. Something's happening on one of the web heads, but you don't know which one. There's 4. So you start grepping through all of them, you start trying to sync the files down, you're trying to hunt through, you're looking and looking, you're just staring at a log, feeling sadder and sadder. I don't know if you can see, staring at a log there. I researched this. All right, and that just starts to really get you down. It's bad. You're staring at the logs. You're staring and staring. You can't find what's going wrong. Oh, my God. You start to think you see it. There's the lady in a red dress. Nope. Nope, that was an out-of-memory error. Oh, God. You're getting bleary-eyed. It just keeps going. And you end up, committed. I can save you from all of that if you just follow my advice and find the better way. Right? So it was in the title. Hopefully this isn't new to you guys. Logstash. Logstash is awesome. It is this little app that does everything you could practically imagine with logs. Who here has worked with Logstash before? Awesome. Who here knows what it is? Cool. Who here's written a plugin for Logstash before? You, man. Why? Every one of my talks, somebody that knows way more than me shows up, and I'm like, what? Go to the ones you don't know everything about. Okay, so Logstash, right? For the few people that didn't raise their hands, it's written in Ruby, but it's actually targeting JRuby. So it actually gets deployed with a big monolithic jar and has all of the stuff that goes with that, right? Incomprehensible stack traces, OOM errors. No, for the most part, it works pretty well. It is a little slow to start up, like everything ever written in Java. The thing that's really cool about it is insanely composable. It has this really simple configuration language that we're going to look at, and it gives you these little pieces that you can start stringing together. So it's got a couple of different components. The agent is the main thing that we're going to be talking about, the main thing you'd be working with. It allows you to have different inputs that are places your logs come in from. You can then apply filters to change or modify that data, and then you have different outputs. So it's kind of like Unix pipes on steroids, but it's got all kinds of sort of brilliant logic built in to make things really easy to work with. So the Logstash event lifecycle looks something like this. You start with an input, you pass it through some filters, and then you hand it to an output. Right? Pretty simple. So here's one workflow that you can set up. This is kind of what we're going to be looking at today, where you've got a bunch of log files, maybe a couple of log files, and then the reason I don't have a log file for Drupal is the way I'd recommend working with this is you don't just have Drupal log to syslog. Right? You can turn on the Drupal syslog module, and then your logs go into syslog, the central Linux logging facility with everything else on the system. Why do I recommend you not do that? Because syslog only allows one line per log entry. A lot of the time, people just assume that you're working with Drupal, so you're going to have DB log turned on, and if something goes wrong, you're going to go hunt around in the database to find all the log messages. So lots of modules print R stuff or log exceptions or whatever, right? A lot of the stuff that ends up in the Drupal log is like 40 lines. There are ways that you can send structured data straight into Logstash. We'll look at them. So that structured data is doesn't have to be bounded by the normal syslog constraints, and you can enrich it with other metadata. And it comes there's a Drupal module that I'll show you that kind of comes with a whole bunch of that love built right in. So let's take a quick look at some Logstash stuff. There we go. Okay, so okay, sure. First, I should probably create a configuration file. So I've got a configuration file here. All I have to do is say input standard in. This is the simplest possible example. And then I could do output standard out, and I'll add one little piece of magic. I can specify a codec, and the codec is how that that data gets encoded. I think I've got that right. And so it uses this kind of JSON-y PHP-like language. Of course, I saved it somewhere privileged, so there you go. So now all I need to do, where am I? Yeah, remember that thing I was saying about live demos being a bad idea? It's cool. Hang on. Bear with me. We're almost there. Whatever. You know what? You type in front of a room full of people. Okay, so now what I can do is I can just run bin Logstash. And for anybody that's done anything with Java, you're like, wow, really? I don't need like 800 lines of bash and XML? No, you don't. That's all you need. Then you can tell it the log file or the configuration file to use. So I'm just going to tell it to use sample.conf. Like I said, it's Java, so it takes a minute to load up. In addition to being just a little slow in terms of the startup time, the other thing with the only other thing that you want to watch out for is Logstash will eat as much memory as the JVM takes to run, which is about 10 megabytes. So if you were running on a super constrained server, you'd want to be aware of that. And there are some lighter weight alternatives. The guy that wrote Logstash, what? I think it's Ruby debug without an underscore. Google will know. Yeah, so there's another project called Lumberjack. I do have the Monty Python I'm a Lumberjack song in case we have extra time. Actually, it's been renamed recently, Logstash Forwarder. This is all written in C, and it's super fast and super lightweight. Maybe a little less feature-rich, but if you're running in more constrained environments, this can be a good option. And the author of these projects is the coding czar at DreamHost. So you can imagine he's got a lot of servers and logs to deal with. So cool, we've got our pipeline started. So if we were to pipe some stuff into standard log, into standard in rather, you'd see that it gets captured. You can see that it's automatically getting a timestamp added to it. You can see the host is automatically grabbing the host name from the machine and filling this out just a little bit more. So I'm not doing anything super interesting yet, right? I'm just piping stuff into standard out, into standard in, and it's spitting it back out to standard out. But what's awesome about Logstash is all of the different options. So Logstash has all of these different inputs, like files and syslog and the GELF format, which, again, I'm going to be coming right back to in a minute. And so if you want to log a file, which we'll look at in a minute, you can have it tail a file. If you want to have it receive structured data from Drupal, you can do that. If you want to have it receive syslog messages, if you want to have it pull stuff off of a RabbitMQ message bus, Logstash has the ability to say, look, I don't care where it's coming from. We've got plugins for a ton of different things, and if you don't see one that you like, you can write your own. And then you can pass all of that stuff through one common set of filters and then out through one common set of outputs, regardless of where the stuff's coming and going from. This keeps it really modular, and it also means that you can sort of scale it horizontally because you can have multiple instances that are pulling and pushing data from different places. Cool, so let's take a look at how you do something a little bit more interesting. So what if, in addition to printing to standard out, what if I also said, actually, why don't you toss this stuff into Redis? And why don't you use the data type list. And why don't you use the key? So Redis is a key value store if you're not familiar. So what's the name of the key to use to put all the stuff into this one list? Well, the key that we'll use is just Logstash. Very creative, I know. Right, so now we're putting it to the screen and we're also sending it into Redis. So I'll also open up a Redis CLI tab over here. We'll see that right now we don't have any keys in our database. It's totally empty. But if I add here as a thing, hey, now I've got stuff going into Redis. So if I did anybody remember the command to get everything out of? You can see I've Googled this before. lrange. Key star will list all the keys like I just did. But if I want to get all of them, I need to tell it start with number 0, show me all of them. So there you go. There's one message. Second message. So you can see these are just queuing up. Now, that's sort of cool. But maybe I want to then do something with them on the other side, right? So I've got my indexer. It's pulling these log messages in. It's throwing them into a super efficient in-memory key value store. But now what I can do is say sample2, again, because my creativity, impressive. I can say my input it's actually the exact same options because it needs to know to pull the same stuff out. My input is Redis, and my output is standard out with the codec JSON. Of course, I opened this without sudoing again. I don't know why I'm not just doing it from a home folder. So now I can run Logstash, tell it the file to take in, and the file is sample2. So that's going to start up my second Redis instance. Over here, I can keep adding, that's Redis, keep adding stuff. Oh, I didn't specify my actual configuration file, sorry. Oh, actually, I just had 2 terminals open with it. Yeah, there you go. So messages are coming out. You'll all be glad to know that I have backups successfully completed. My messages are coming out over on this side. So I type in over here. It comes through Redis, and then it comes out over here. So you can see I'm getting type in over here. I'm getting type out over there. Awesome. We're taking logs in. We're passing them somewhere else. If we wanted to, we could also say add another input of a file. The docs on the Logstash site are pretty good. They usually do a pretty good job of explaining sort of what's actually required. So path is, I'll just grab home, vagrant, somefile.json, and we'll say the codec is JSON. So now, if I echo foo, oh, it's got to be valid JSON, foo, var, into some file.json. There you go. Foo was set to bar. We were getting, it is parsing that JSON, passing it through, putting it out the other side. Pretty cool, right? Now you get all your log messages from all these different places, and now you can log into one terminal and see a JSON output of whatever's there as long as you don't crash your screen session, right? Okay, fine. Not that useful yet, but I'm getting there. So we probably go full screen, damn it. There you go. So we've got logs. Awesome. Now, where do we put them for safekeeping? Elasticsearch. Who's heard of Elasticsearch? Excellent. Who's used Elasticsearch? All right. The rest of you, I'm disappointed. Get on it. No, it's good. I'll explain. Elasticsearch is awesome. It's the bee's knees. It's the future. It's everything that I wish that I was. So Elasticsearch is built on Lucene. It's an awful lot like Solr. The feature list is really similar. So if you're not familiar with Lucene, it's basically this library for doing search indexing, describes a whole file format, and has a bunch of algorithms and knows how to, put stuff from full text structured information into a format and then index it so that it can really efficiently and really quickly be parsed back out. Solr is sort of the front end that we're all familiar with, we all know and love. We get with Panthea and Acquia and whoever else our hosting might be with. The Elasticsearch folks basically said, you know what, I think we can do better. Solr has this kind of partial ability to cluster, but it's kind of not all that well thought out and not all that well implemented and kind of bolted on. I bet we could build something that really, really is good at living in a cloud environment where nodes come up and down, where we need to scale horizontally, where we have way more records that can fit in one box. It should just work. Well, they were pretty successful. So, like I said, it's running most of the same actual sort of logic code based on that Lucene library to do all of its indexing and searching and all of that stuff. But it automatically shards, it automatically clusters, it automatically handles discovery, it automatically handles nodes going up and down. It automatically can repair its indices if they break, which is particularly interesting in the case of indexing log information, because the log information might not be able to be reconstructed, right? Stuff can sort of age out of your logs. You probably don't want your load balancer hanging on to everything. But you can keep chucking it into an Elasticsearch cluster instead of having your log rotate, throwing them away every 20 minutes. You can have it pumping into an Elasticsearch cluster, which you can keep growing as long as it, I'm sure there's an upper theoretical limit. I'm not sure what it would be. But as long as it is still financially feasible, right? That's usually the point that you hit before anything else. So let's take a super quick look at Elasticsearch because it's just too cool not to kind of take a look at and talk about.
So Howard, you said clusters. Does that mean you're talking about running this on each server that you're normally trying to log and letting them cluster together, or are you pushing this out someplace else?
Pushing it out someplace else. So yes, Elasticsearch clusters. No, I wouldn't say run it on every webhead. You want to have one sort of central place. It can take a lot of disk space. It can take a lot of memory like any full text search index can, especially if you're pumping a lot of records into it. The whole point is having one place. But the thing is, what happens when you start to outgrow that one place? Or what happens if that one server goes down? Well, if there's actually 3 servers, not one server, maybe you don't even notice. Hopefully, some alarm goes off because you've got monitoring, and your pager goes off saying, like, maybe you can wait till the morning because 1 out of 5 nodes is down, but, deal with it. So how easy is starting an Elasticsearch cluster? I downloaded the Elasticsearch tarball, and I ran bin/Elasticsearch. I know you're all very glad that I was here to walk you through it. Weren't going to figure that out for yourselves. Now I did cheat a little. Oh, that's the other thing. Elasticsearch's documentation is awesome. I mean, I just wish it was a person so I could marry it. All the examples are just curl examples. Like everything's just a curl command, which the Solr guys are finally starting to catch up and do that too, except theirs all cheat and like the curl command loads an external file that has a whole bunch of JSON structure, right, or XML structure. The Elasticsearch ones, it's just like you just start running stuff from the command line and you can totally figure out how it works. I learned more in one day with Elasticsearch about how it worked and how I could extend it than I did in like 5 years of working with Solr. And it has this nice web UI. Hang on. I installed Fresh for you guys. And now you get to see how you install a plugin. Uno momento, por favor. So that's going to grab the plugin for me. And, well, we can see it again, and we can see it in a second. But if I wanted to add a second node to my cluster, what would I have to configure? Probably a bunch of ports and IP addresses and stuff, right? Wrong. I just run bin Elasticsearch, and it just connected. I now have an index. I now have an Elasticsearch cluster of 2. And if we just do a Google search for Elasticsearch Cluster API, we'll find out that we can check our cluster health just by running a GET request. See what I mean about the documentation? Awesome. Okay. So Elasticsearch can then index all of our content as we need it. Luckily, Logstash has support for Elasticsearch. It just hooks right up to it. In fact, it will run an embedded Elasticsearch instance. So let me just dump out. How did we ever live with 640 by 480 screens? So all we need to do to start getting something a little more useful is to say we have an output of Elasticsearch. Now let me just make sure that I'm not also, I have Elasticsearch installed on this system. Let me make sure I don't also have it running. You're not still there? Good, you're not still there. So just for demonstration purposes, we can even say embedded true. And what this is going to do is run Elasticsearch embedded inside this process. What the what? It has Elasticsearch built in. So it's JRuby, which is awesome, because that means that they can actually embed Java code right into the Ruby code, right? So while the code is written in Ruby, I did not lie, it is written specifically with the intention of targeting JRuby. I wouldn't go trying to run it without that. So now I'm starting to pipe stuff into Elasticsearch. Now if I curled 9200, oh, that's a little weird. Oh, right, because I started my listener in Logstash. sample 2. So this is, oh, you know what, and I'll start it with -v for verbose. So this will show us, you got to put the V before the F or everything will blow up. So this should print out a bunch of the same Logstash startup messages that we saw before in our other window. So this is going to start up a Logstash instance in process, and then in process it's going to have an Elasticsearch instance built in as well. Or it would if I wasn't doing a live demo, which angers the gods. Everything looks good there, right? I think so. Then don't worry, guys. If this doesn't work, I'll just start dancing. Okay, so the other thing we could do is not run it embedded. Because Elasticsearch has all these awesome auto-discovery features, we can start up Elasticsearch on our VM here. And inside of our VM, you can see that we're now connected. And if I go to the browser, this is that UI that I was trying to show you, that plugin that, of course, didn't work when I was trying to actually show you. So now we're actually getting log messages into an Elasticsearch instance. So they're getting indexed just like Solr style. Which is pretty good, right? We can do searches here. We can say search for different things in these different fields. We could say show me only stuff where the host was, where the request URI was Logstash or was logging server. And we can click in here and we can look at these individual records and see structured data that's coming into the Logstash index. So that's pretty good. But you can see that this is a really generic interface. It's not very specific to Logstash. It's not very specific to logs generally. Luckily, I'm sure you're going to be shocked, there's a solution for that as well. Amazing! So how do we find those? Well, we use a tool called Kibana. Kibana is also worked on by the same team that does the Logstash stuff. It's not actually specific to Logstash. It is specific to Elasticsearch. So it's for building time series Elasticsearch data, visualizations, graphs, charts, maps, all that kind of stuff. This is the part of the presentation where your heart should be filling up, bursting over. So if we just start the web interface by running bin, we should give it a port to run on. I'll say 9001. We can start Logstash's web interface, and the web interface is actually a JavaScript-based front-end app. So while this will serve it, you wouldn't actually need to run this from the same node. You could run it from somewhere else. So if I go to logging demo :9001, it may take a moment to start listening because it is Java, and Java is slow. Or maybe it won't actually start up at all. All right, this is working out. This is working out awesome.
Might check the logs.
Yeah, if only it was logging anything at all right now. All right. Well, I may just have to forge ahead here for a minute. Try that again in a second. It's not that happy right now. So hopefully that'll come up in a second if I give it a minute, although I don't know what would be causing it to take this long. This part of it usually starts up pretty quick.
Is Kibana built into Logstash?
Kibana's not, kind of, sort of. Kibana's not really built into Logstash so much as I think Logstash real quick goes and downloads it for you and then serves it. Well, it seems to be responsive on my actual localhost, so maybe I can show it to you over here. No? Oh, that's awesome. Who wants to look at screenshots of it? So yeah, Kibana gives you a whole bunch of cool stuff. So you can do these, like, you can look at it intensely. You can watch it go by. It'll build these graphs. It'll build pie charts. It'll build you, if you do geolocation on the IPs, it'll put stuff onto a map, kind of like Google Analytics will. It's a really flexible and really powerful system. And like I said, it's not actually specific to Logstash data itself. You could use it with any kind of time series database. Well, I think specifically Elasticsearch based. It's built against that API. And it's really powerful. So in this whole picture, that's how you go and you find your log messages. But how do you know that something didn't go down in the middle of the night, right? Well, hopefully you've got some reporting. I'd recommend Sensu, although that's way out of the scope of this session. It's a really powerful, really flexible tool, and it is way better than Nagios.
There's an awesome video from Prague.
Yes. There's actually Nick talked about it there, I think. Yeah, yeah, there's a great video from Prague. You should definitely watch it. The Pantheon guys use it, and they were presenting on that in Prague. They're the ones that turned me onto it. It's awesome. But what about Sensu? sensuapp.org, I think, yeah. It's awesome. So what it does is basically you have a message queue, and unlike Nagios, where you have to write a ton of configuration for every single node, and you've got this data model that has like 20 different entities, you basically just tag your servers, and you say this one is a database server, and then it gets all the database checks. And as soon as it appears for the first time, Sensu remembers that server forever after and tells you if it's missing checks. And then if you want to get rid of it, you can just delete it through the HTTP, the UI, or the HTTP API. So it's sort of like Elasticsearch. It's designed for these newer sort of setups where nodes kind of come and go, where you might be hosting on Amazon, where your nodes might just disappear in the middle of the night for no reason. So there's another tool, GRAYLOG2. That is, they got permission to use the Oatmeal's party gorilla. So GRAYLOG2, it's definitely sort of the party gorilla of the logging scene. I think they're trying to grow up. They're not using that logo anymore, which makes me a little sad. So I'm going to keep using it in my presentation. So GRAYLOG2, it's yet another Java app. It's totally scalable, but it's also a little more monolithic and less composable. And it allows you to do alerting and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to show you screenshots if my machine blows up. This was working all morning. I was like so proud of myself. I like threw everything at it and it wouldn't break. Next time I'm making a video. Murphy's Law of Demos, man. Now, I wasn't running the GRAYLOG2 server because I didn't want... I didn't want it to be crashing on me, but I didn't want it to be conflicting with the other part of my demo either. Now, hopefully that'll wake up on port 9000 in a minute. Although, with my luck, there's the networking problem, and that's just not going to happen either. Hey, something looks like it worked. They like me. They really like me. They don't. They're just relieved. They're just relieved not to be embarrassed for me again. If I know the login to my own. You know what? I do know what it is. Nothing's ever easy. I thought I had reset it. Brr. And I should be able to copy my password without showing it to you. Yes, yes, oh my God, 1,000 times, yes. So, this is GRAYLOG2. It is the awesome sauce. It is cooler than Kibana anyway. So don't worry about the fact that we didn't see Kibana, because this is sick. So it does a whole lot of the same stuff Kibana does. They sort of inhabit the same space. Kibana is a little simpler to set up and probably a little simpler to maintain. But you can do really cool things with GRAYLOG2, including GRAYLOG2 processes messages as they come in. So the thing with Kibana is Kibana talks straight to Elasticsearch. So you've got this Elasticsearch cluster where you've got 1 or 2 or 10 or 20 nodes, and you've got messages coming straight into that cluster, auto routing to the right node and figuring everything out, right? Kibana has no opportunity to know that something's going into Elasticsearch, so it can't respond. It can only look at stuff after the fact. Now, we're talking about logs, right? So that's probably fine. Unless you wanted to say, look, I should never have an exception on production. I should never see the words out of memory go through my log messages anywhere on any production machine. This lets you say, save a search. I'll create a new stream. Here's an example one that I created for you guys. Here's an example stream that the last 8 hours. An example stream that grabs only Drupal emergency level errors, right? And so what we can do is on this stream, when we configure it, streams, configure, we can manage alerts. And we can set up new alerts to say that a person should see something the next time they log into the GRAYLOG interface, or to say a person should get an email, or you can write your own plugins and you can add additional notification systems. So it can go to your PagerDuty account and page the person that's currently on duty for the night.
Does this work with Sensu?
You could get stuff out of this and into Sensu if you wanted to, yeah. The other thing that you could do if you wanted to do alerting is you could write a plugin for Logstash, because in theory Logstash should be seeing all your alert messages as they come through, and so you could use a Logstash output to do some alerting as well. Because while Elasticsearch doesn't know and Kibana doesn't know, that does. There you'd be doing everything in code. Here you've got a little bit of a UI, which is kind of nice. Now, GRAYLOG has one really cool feature. They created something called the GELF format. GELF is basically a specific JSON schema and a sort of set of protocols for streaming it over the wire. So you can do it with JSON over REST, or you can send it via TCP or UDP. Now, thankfully, we live in Drupal land, so there's a module for that. Drupal.org/project/GELF. It's pretty easy to install. And then once you do, you can go to the configuration page and you can just set what port it should listen on. And then in GRAYLOG2, you can go to this System tab and you can go to your Inputs page. And on your Inputs page, you can launch new inputs. So here you can see I have it listening to GELF for GELF on TCP and UDP, and that's it. If I were to, there's no way, with my luck, there's no way this is going to work. But I have it all set up so that Apache access logs, Apache error logs, and Drupal GELF messages all get slurped up, passed through Logstash, and then go into a Redis queue where they're then unpacked and placed into a GRAYLOG instance. So essentially, Logstash is the thing that's responsible for slurping up all the logs and receiving all the things from all around our infrastructure. Logstash we do run on our edge nodes. Logstash gets installed everywhere. 10 megabyte jar file running on all of our servers all the time, slurping up all the log messages and sending them through a single messaging queue back to a single place where they get slurped up and put into a single log entry location so that we can go in and we can start setting alerts like, if we see a 20% increase of log messages overall, wake me up. And you can do those sorts of things with GRAYLOG, and have saved searches so that you can find all of the log messages from a particular site or a particular level. That's really easy to do. You just go into this Streams UI, you say Create Stream, you give it a descriptive title and description, just like that. And then all you have to do is do a saved search. So you can add a stream rule and say, anytime UID is 1, I want to know about it. So the thing I just did would grab every single message from Drupal where the UID was 1. And basically what you're doing is you can just make up whatever structure you want in that Guelph stream with extended fields. They'll end up in your index, and you can do structured faceted searches based on those. Hey, it looks like it might have actually worked. If it did, I should be able to go to devel PHP, run watchdog, live demo, obviously a bad idea. Doesn't have any arguments, but it is watchdog emergency. So, in theory, that should have just come through here, and that should have ended up in my most recent search. Obviously a bad idea. Something in my live demo worked. And if we click in on this specific message, you can see we've got a ton of extra data here. We've got the UID, we've got the admin, we've got the facility. We see that this came in as Guelph. We can see that this, I'm not doing anything smart here, like giving us a human readable title. This is giving us the log level from Drupal's internal integer system, so 6 is the worst. If I were to go over here to my streams, I could click in on that stream, my Drupal emergency level alert errors, and we'd see logging demo, obviously a bad idea. And all of this stuff is getting filtered to show us only stuff in the last 5 minutes, but we could say, show me stuff in the last hour, proving to you yet again that this demo was working before because there were earlier messages. That was more than an hour ago. Last 8 hours. So there you go. There was some stuff from a couple hours ago. Here was some stuff right now. Thought everything was good. Just testing it out. Anyway, you can see this stuff is working. Just using Drupal's core central logging facility, and that Guelph module just whisks that stuff over UDP into our locally running Guelph receiver, where it then goes through our sort of central messaging bus back to a central place where we can see all the log messages from all of our servers. One other thing that I definitely need to tell you guys about is Logstash's grok support. So what grok allows you to do is compose regular expressions out of other regular expressions, and it ships with a ton right out of the box. So what you can do is say, I'm going to make one regular expression for parsing a date. Thankfully for you, grok comes with all of the ones for all of the dates. You don't need to worry about it. You can just tell it, this is a date, followed by the first word, which is the this part of the message, followed by whatever comes after, and that's the that part of the message. You can name them. They'll automatically get slurped up into the structure of the Guelph format and into the structured logs. So if you're dealing with apps that don't ship with configurable logs like Apache, where you can actually get Apache to log structured JSON for you, if you're dealing with, I don't know, Varnish or Pound or Squid or some older thing that doesn't allow you to do that stuff, you can write your own little composable regular expression so that as each line comes up, it gets filtered, broken apart into something structured, and then passed into your centralized index. This you can essentially see with X-ray vision into your highly sophisticated system, right? A modern Drupal site isn't just a web server. It's a bank of web servers with a load balancer in front and a memory store like Redis behind it with some kind of search thing like Solr, and probably a bunch of other stuff too. Node.js, and maybe you've got a mean app, and maybe you've got some people use the same stuff for processing log messages from clients. So if they have mobile client apps, you've got a local iPhone app, you can have that iPhone app periodically ship log messages back up to the server as well, so that you can get sort of a centralized place to even search that stuff and get all that into a central event stream so that you can see sort of what was happening on the server based on what was happening on the clients. So yeah, that's it. I started with just logs, and this is the sing-along part, guys. Log, log, log.
Hey kids, start jumping up and down like idiots, because look what's new from Log this time. It's all new Action Log with realistic facial moss. And you can dress new Action Log for adventure with these great new action outfits.
So
There's Log of Arabia.
hopefully you guys don't just think I put a beard and a hat on, a log file. I think it's a little more than that, a little more exciting than that. But yeah, logs, right? They're the backbone of your application. They're the only way to see what's going on and why.
And get set for super secret spy.
And you can be a spy
Double O Log.
on your logs, right? On your
And how
system.
about
It's
the
a little.
all-new Log Lion Tamer playset? And girls, you'll swoon when you hear singing Log. La 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 la.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate your time, and hopefully we can all sort of start working on this stuff together. To that end, I've got a couple of fixes to push to it, obviously, but I did put up a Vagrant project because getting the one caveat is getting this stuff set up and working is a little bit of a pain. You need to make sure you have the right versions of everything. So I published a GRAYLOG module for installing it with Puppet on Debian or CentOS. It should just work if you're a Puppet person. If you're a Chef person, you're on your own. Yeah, patch is welcome. If you download that right this second, there might be a couple of issues that I've found during this demo today. But if you watch the repository, I'll get a couple of fixes pushed up there, and I'll make sure to say in the comment message, what I fixed. All right. I think we need to be out of here in a second, but I'll take questions until the next presenter shows up. And thanks, guys.
Speaking of putting a beard and a hat on logs, have you seen Logstalgia?
No.
Type that in real quick. It's amazing. It totally turns your logs into this Apache Pong thing. It's hilarious. It's awesome. It really is.
Oh, nice. I like its music. Wow. Is this useful for anything? We need a projector in the office for this. That's awesome. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
There's also a GIF visualization written by the same guy. Yeah, of course.
Oh, nice.
So my question is about monologue, because you didn't touch on that. And I found that seems to be sort of the next generation. It's sort of it can do everything in every format. It'll do the Gelf. It'll do the Logstash. It'll do all those different pieces and dozens of others. And there's a Drupal module to go install it. It's one of the new ones that uses Composer so that there's tons more eyeballs on it. And it seems like it's sort of the be-all, end-all because it touches on all the stuff you touched on and lots of other things.
Right. So I think there's a plugin for Monologue to log to Gelf.
Yes.
Yeah. So the thing is that Monologue, if you're writing PHP apps, Monologue is a great logging tool to use. I highly recommend using some log library so that you can sort of splice things out. You probably want things to go into either syslog or their own file, and also something like this. It's really nice to still be able to see logs on the local machine. Yeah, I'd say if you're writing your own app, this is a great idea. If you wanted to use this instead of the Gelf module, that's a great idea. But it definitely fits on that side of the equation where you want to get structured data out of the app. Which for Watchdog, the Gelf module, you just flip it on, give it a port and a host name, and it does its thing. This I'd have to look at, but I've used it in PHP projects before, and I don't know how it exactly hooks into Drupal.
It does a lot of the filtering pieces that you're using Logstash for in Drupal.
Oh, interesting. That could be an interesting use case. Yeah.
Kind of basic question, but if say your web infrastructure would be located far away from your logging infrastructure, are there any considerations you need to take? Is this going to go on the lockdown or push these logs something like that?
Yeah, so that's a fair question. So if your logging or monitoring infrastructure is far away from your production infrastructure, I mean, it's a pretty simple calculation of the throughput. The wire protocols can be pretty efficient. All of these things can actually send UDP. I'd tell you a UDP joke, but I'm not sure you'd get it. Everybody get it? Get it? Hey. So the thing with UDP is like, it's faster if there's lower overhead, but there's also like no reliability. So so I mean, the thing is like, you just need to look at what volume of logs you're processing and how much of a network penalty you're going to be paying for that. The other thing, though, to consider is either you need to encrypt the stuff going over the wire, which we do in some cases where we have some systems in a separate data center. So we've got some stuff in Chicago, and then we've got a bunch of stuff in Houston. We use RabbitMQ as the messaging bus. So for my biggest installation of this setup, I actually use RabbitMQ as the output and input rather than Redis, which has its own sort of queuing and stability systems. And then you can make that all TLS. It's relatively low overhead, but yeah, you'd have to add some overhead if they were going to be remote because you need to be encrypting everything. And I think RabbitMQ keeps a connection open, so it switches to symmetric crypto, which should be pretty fast once it's negotiated its connection, but it's not going to be UDP over the local host, right? Which you can do if you have the stuff in the same data center. Maybe not over localhost, but over a gigabit connection where it's going to scale a lot better. I'd say unless you have a compelling reason, you probably want to put them in the same place. Any other questions? Have I had problems with performance with RabbitMQ? No. The cluster's not huge. My biggest cluster with that is not huge. So maybe if I had more. How many nodes did you have involved?
We only have about 12 nodes, but we have extremely high volume traffic.
12 nodes, but extremely high volume traffic. Yeah, I mean, if you can be in a data center where you can get a private LAN, which with most of the cloud providers, you can say, give me a private network for all of these servers in this data center, and then nobody else can sniff on that. And if you just lock it down by IP address, if you were doing that with TCP, you could be pretty confident that nobody was getting in, even if there were other people in your subnet, because of the way most of the cloud providers have things configured by default. If you really needed to do UDP, you could actually get, with a lot of them, you can get in your own sort of security groupie thing, and nobody else can see your traffic at all from those private interfaces. If I were you and I was having trouble with RabbitMQ at the volume that you're handling, I'd look at switching to that probably. But yeah, I haven't had enough volume that it's been a problem for me. And most of the stuff that's going over RabbitMQ, yeah, is relatively low volume, where it's not totally local. So I don't know what your bottleneck was, but also I am not a RabbitMQ expert. I kind of turned it on, set up what I needed to set up, and then it worked for me, and I didn't look much deeper. But I know that it's pretty sophisticated, and there's a lot of tunables. So I suspect you might just need to make some adjustments. I know you can tweak the persistence, so you may be having it ensuring that no message gets dropped when you don't need to be. With log messages, it's better if you don't drop a message, but it's probably not the end of the world, because probably if you're having a problem, you're getting a bunch of them. It's not usually a single log message that I'm trying to find that was the problem. It has a tendency to be like, there's 10,000 of them. How are they correlating? Anything else? All right. Thanks, guys.